Hello everybody. So today I want to make a quick video about the Keyman risk for Tesla of Elon Musk. And I want to make a video in general about founders versus leaders and why I believe most public firms have leaders who also happen oftentimes to be founders, but the fact that the founding stage of the company is over mitigates greatly the risk. So what is Keyman risk first? Keyman risk I consider a problem when the company is not cash flow positive. The company is not making money, not cash flow positive, and so the founder still needs to be the driving force behind the business. I consider it a problem too early on when you have a startup, when the mission is not clearly defined. And I consider it a problem when the company is over-reliant on the founder. You have some founders who don't want to delegate anything. And this is clearly not the case of Tesla. Elon Musk delegates everything to everybody. Look at any event. He reviews the blueprints, the plans, gives feedback here and there, but it's a highly delegated company. It's not one man controlling everything. So I believe Keyman risk, in my view, is largely gone and not present for a company like Tesla. It's mostly a narrative. I think Tesla has a risk in the form of a loss of a leader risk, but it's not a loss of a Keyman risk because a leader, and this is controversial, but again, it's my channel, so a leader is not a Keyman anymore. A leader is someone that is replaceable. Once the country, say take a country, take the United States. The United States has had plenty of poor leaders, but it's had very good founders who founded, a Senate, a House. Make sure you have a two-party system. Make sure you have states and balancing powers and all sorts of powers. So because the country was founded right, you may have had plenty of bad leaders. Once the leader is gone and a new leader comes in, the country gets back. You can never kill the country. And I believe the same is true for a company. Once a company has a good base, it's very tough for a leader to kill that good base. And leaders, in a way, they're important. They're a risk, but they're mostly replaceable. So I know I go against a whole world of literature because people get very passionate about leadership. And, you even have degrees in leadership and PhDs in leadership and a whole bunch of books talking about how leadership is the most important thing. But to me, what's most important is the founder, when they created that structure, when they put in place the structure of the business that leads to cash flow, the structure of a business that has a mission and that leads to a habit of innovation. But once that is created, the leader is replaceable. And I have no issue imagining the leader of Tesla one day not being Elon Musk, just like we have Jeff Bezos not being the leader of Amazon anymore. So hear me out as I show you some examples which make me sleep well at night and I think should make a lot of people sleep well at night. For example, let's talk about Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs was the founder of Apple. But Steve Jobs was also the leader of Apple, and unfortunately, Steve Jobs died in 2011. And you had it's tough to look articles that are 13 years old, but there's a few still left online. You had plenty of articles about the death of Apple's founder and what it would do to the stock and what it would do to the shares. You even have academic articles, right there, a very interesting article that discusses that the stock actually had no reaction whatsoever to the death of the CEO. And if you look at the returns after the death of the CEO, and you bet in 2011 this was considered a Keyman risk, but he was replaced by an equally good leader because the firm was already founded. And if you look at Apple's return, 26% ever since the death of Steve Jobs, so those returns have nicely outperformed the NASDAQ. Great returns, even though the leader was gone. And I believe that would be the same thing that would happen to Tesla. Let me show you another example. And I'm keeping my examples to big tech because Tesla is obviously one of the Magnificent Seven. It's a big tech company. So looking at another company, let's look at Steve Ballmer. Have you ever looked at these videos of Steve Ballmer, especially this one? Steve Ballmer going crazy on stage. Steve Ballmer was a CEO that a lot of people were uncomfortable with, and he made a lot of blunders, including for the internet, saying the internet was not designed for the iPhone and would never work on our phone, saying that emails didn't look good on the phone. that people are going to keep using PCs and iPhones and never going to be a thing. You have a lot of interviews of strategic mistakes, etc. Yet, if you look at the performance, and arguably, if one were to agree to the premise that Ballmer was a bad leader, and if you were to think that and again, look at these videos and get your own opinion by looking at these videos and looking at old interviews of him. Is he a bad leader? Some people would argue that. If you look at the performance of Microsoft over the period, it's in line with the NASDAQ, right? And keep in mind, the reason why this performance looks so bad is because he became CEO in the early 2000s, and of course, that was the internet bubble. But the stock, rode its returns right back, and it took 14 years for the stock to get back to the nose-bleeding level. But I would argue, if you look at the stock performance, you can't complain. It's the same as the NASDAQ. The performance was the same as the NASDAQ, and the NASDAQ was, of course, the best asset. Is the best asset in my view. So the company did about the same as its benchmark, despite a CEO that some would argue was not that great. And that was a loss of a leader for Microsoft, right? They had lost Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs was not the leader anymore. Let's talk about innovation, because I know some people may say, well, if you lose the founder, you're going to lose innovation. Is Apple less innovative? Well, there's a lot of cynicism out there, and a lot of people are saying that Apple Watch, for example, was none of the doing of the employees of Apple, but Apple Watch was all Steve Jobs' doing. It's a little bit far-fetched to think that employees didn't have more of a say in the Apple Watch, knowing that it was released 4 years after the death of a founder. I would argue the Apple Watch is a very innovative product. It's only an 8-year-old product, and it has not reached its potential at all fully. And I would argue this product is going to be essential, for example, in healthcare of the future. They did that without the founder, and of course, they are releasing a very visionary product. No pun intended, but Apple Vision, right? Apple Vision, I believe, will be very visionary. VR, AR will be a big thing, and if Apple does it, if Apple releases the product, it will likely get adopted. We saw that with the watch, right? Apple Watch was not the first watch with a GPS and was not the first watch to be able to do a phone call, but when they launched it, these watches became a thing. I have a feeling it will be the same for Apple Vision, and Apple Vision, Steve Jobs has nothing to do at all with Apple Vision. So losing the founder for a company like Apple, I believe, did not hurt too much, because during the founding of a company, the DNA, the innovative DNA of a company was already set in place. And I'm going to do the same thing for Microsoft. Is Microsoft less innovative today without its founder, without Microsoft? And I would argue not so sure. They don't have a founder anymore, but Microsoft Azure is a major success. And their investment in ChatGPT and Copilot is also a big success. Their GitHub investments was a big success. LinkedIn was a big success. Now, they've made a few mistakes. They've missed the phone, right? That was a mistake. Apple has made a few mistakes, right? They could have bought Tesla. They didn't buy Tesla. That was a mistake. I'm not saying they don't make mistakes, but leaders can make mistakes. Founders that are leaders can make mistakes too. But I just don't think it's going to be that big of a problem. And if you go back further in time, and I'm not going to, but if you look at McDonald's, as soon as McDonald's lost Ray Kroc, and Ray Kroc moved away, and by the way, some would argue that Ray Kroc was not a very good leader, but he had a good business. He had a very good business in place. He was a very good founder. And so the company went on to do really great things. And Walt Disney, well, if you forget the last few years of Walt Disney, where they haven't been doing well, but if you forget about that and go back to the early days of Disney, Disney was some of the best stock in the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s. The tax on having children was what people would call Disney. It was a company that did really, really well long after losing the founder. And so I'm not too worried about it. And let me finish this video by being more Tesla specific. So the risk for Tesla is narrowly defined in my view. It's a narrow risk. It's the risk of a loss of a leader, the loss of a leader. I don't think Tesla needs a founder anymore. The company's founded and doing well and leading. They run the risk of a leader. And the question you may ask is, well, are they going to lose the leader? Well, first of all, let's keep in mind that Tesla's CEO, in my view, is more well-guarded than heads of state. And if you watch any interview of Elon, you see that. And if you watch anything like that, you see that this video was all over the internet from when he got released in court, and people on the internet were commenting on on the eyes of the bodyguards. And yes, it is pretty scary, I suppose, but it's security similar to what heads of states have. I remember this when Mark Zuckerberg went to be quote unquote grilled at the Senate. You had senators in the hallway who were trying to talk to Zuckerberg, and they could not get access to Zuckerberg because you had 30 bodyguards between Zuckerberg and the senators. So the senators could not get access to him, right? And you may say, oh, well, I'm not concerned about his physical safety. I'm concerned about legal. Well, first of all, Elon is quoted saying, we will sue any injustice with the world's greatest lawyers. And he's quoted hiring some of the biggest law teams behind him. You may remember the rant that Elon Musk had against a paparazzi who went after his child. And he was very, very angry on Twitter and almost scary. I wouldn't have liked to be that paparazzi. And he was like, I'll sue you, and you went after my child, and etc. So that was an example that yes, they are not asleep at the legal wheel, quote unquote. They have the best lawyers out there. And even if they were to lose, and this is something that's important to remember for these companies, is that the lawsuit system and the law and the judgments and the trials, they move at the speed of the law, which is 5 years, roughly 5 years. If you include the appeals system, it's at least 5 years to get anything done. So 5 years, imagine where Tesla will be in 5 years. I mean, to me, like I see that risk. If there is any legal risk, I see is that 5 years away. That's an eternity for a company that moves this fast. And we've seen this, we see this, we keep seeing this with companies like Microsoft or Google. And look at how many antitrust Google has, and look at how many fines Google got, and look at how long states have been going after Google. And you get news on Google's ad monopoly and the states trying to dismantle it, and the stock barely moves because it takes years, and these companies innovate at a speed that is unknown to the justice system, which moves at the pace of the 1800s. And that hasn't changed much. If you know anything about justice system, they're understaffed. There's very few people. Anyways, in conclusion, I am not too worried about Tesla losing a founder. The only worry is about, the leader. And Elon's the leader. He was the founder, but now he's the leader, right? Tesla has reached escape velocity if the founder goes away. And leaders are more replaceable than founders. Founders are 1 in a million. Leaders are more replaceable. They have the best legal team, the best security team. Data does not show that the loss of a leader is a catastrophe, contrary to what so many magazines, so many books would have you believe. Once the firm is built, once it has amazing structure, rules, procedures, mission, vision, structure and culture. Once it has all of this, it's kind of an autopilot. And the health of Elon Musk, and I didn't touch on that, but I'll finish with this. I am no doctor, but the health of Elon Musk seems to be getting clearly much better compared to what it used to be back in the production hell phase of the 2019, 2018. If you've been following the CEO for a while, you can clearly see that, to the point that he was training into mixed martial arts and whatever. So the health also of the CEO seems to be much better. So in my view, I see these risks, if anything, I see them as lower than they've ever been. And in my view, this is the risk of a loss of a leader. And the question is the leader a true Keyman, like a founder? Yes, they are Keymen, but there are dozens of Keymen. And that's really, in my view, a less high Keyman than, say, a firm at its founding stage would be and would have. A firm at a founding stage would have a much greater need for a founder than a firm at the stage of Tesla. So anyways, I hope that answers this recurring comment that I get in the comment section whenever I cover a company like Tesla. I hope this answers this question. This was not investment advice. This is just entertainment. I hope you were entertained. I appreciate your likes, appreciate your subscribes. Thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful day.